From the home offices of Ash and Flo, this is Unbillable Hours, a podcast about professional services marketing. Stick around and listen to our insights, tips, and best practices to improve your firm's marketing and even your career.
Hey, friends of the Unbillable Hour, or rather, Unbillable 20 minutes, should we say? We are dropping this episode here a bit early so we can clear out Season 2, close it off, and then come back on Friday this week, as we usually do, with something new. We will have a guest on, Will E, VP of Sales at Passel, a SaaS company that helps professional services firms with their content creation and distribution. And he'll share some insights around the future of content creation distribution in the firm. And he'll have some very interesting insights to share. So enjoy this one here, the last episode of Season 2. And then come back Friday for the start of Season 3 with a guest on the show. Thanks.
All right.
You and I discussed that we wanted to dig into our toolboxes a little bit. For the benefits of our listeners as well, in this case myself, because I want to learn from you a little bit. You brought to me last time around we spoke your brand building pyramid, if that's the right word, essentially a framework for thinking about brand messaging. And I thought, let's discuss this on an episode to see how this might be applied in the service area, right? So I'll hand the stage to you, and maybe you can guide us through the brand pyramid framework. And then once you set it up, I'll just ask dumb questions I might have in the in-between, and you can help me understand how I could apply this when branding, I don't know, a service offering for a firm, maybe even a practice. I don't know where you see it play out.
There's plenty of places. But just to take one step, just to set the scene here, like when you're building so brand essentially has got a lot to do with your identity, right? So when you're building your identity, you need to have your mission and your vision. And that kind of adds into your initial narrative. And then you go into this whole thing about like owning your narrative, because it's a game between using your metrics and measures that to make sure that your customers trust you and are delighted by you. And as you know, when you put something out in the market, there is a narrative that comes with it, and there is something that you also try to own. So it becomes this whole balancing act. But before it becomes a balancing act, as you initially play out what you are, right, you need to do a basic level of audit that helps you set this framework that you then start taking to the market. And that framework is what your brand pyramid is. Like, the best way to put it is like when you are building your company's identity, this framework should answer your most fundamental questions about your brand. Like, what are you trying to do with your company? Like, what's the basic features and attributes? Like, what are the benefits, and how do you connect your brand to your end customer, end consumer? So all of these things will kind of like play into this framework, and overall framework that you get once you have identified your mission and vision, just like I said, the brand pyramid. So
right. Can I describe the whole thing as I see it here for the people who can't see it?
Yeah.
Like we're looking at a pyramid with 5 segments, right? And from the bottom up, I don't want to into deep, I just read the headlines. So the 5 levels. The basement of the pyramid says features and attributes, right? Then a layer on top, next layer up is functional benefits. Next layer up is emotional benefits. Then come brand and product persona, or brand/product persona. I guess in our case, it's probably service or practice persona. And then comes the brand idea at the very top. So do you want to walk through this and how people might apply it and when I think about branding a service offering? And by the way, I should maybe say, I liked this even for areas where the distinct objective is not to, let's build a brand for this thing, right? I looked at this and I was like, that's a helpful messaging exercise, tool, way of thinking about it. Like, because it just helps me structure my thinking and get these elements in. And I think it's helpful even if I never end up building an actual brand. It's just cool to think about it that way.
So what you said is really, really good, because the thing here is you have to look at it as a consensus tool of what you want your
Ooh, I
company
like
to
that.
be,
Yeah.
who it serves, what it makes your consumers and your customers feel, and what your core values are, not just the company, but the product itself. And it clarifies all these differing things about like all the differing opinions within the company, and sets your strategic foundation so that you can now go to market with your product, your service, or your offering. So everything that you asked for earlier, right? That kind of fits in nicely.
Yeah.
And if we start from the base, the first area is the features and attributes. So whatever your product is, whatever your service is, you have to figure out what its USP is. Like,
Yeah.
what's the tangible asset of your product or service? Like, what makes it different? What's a differentiator? What are its features and general things? What is your product?
Yeah.
And if your product is different things to different people, then you don't really know what your product is. And when each of your stakeholders just go out to the market talking about your product, they'll say different things. Your consumers and customers will start talking different things about what you do. And ultimately, unless you are an existing brand that already has huge market share, you're going to cause a lot of confusion to people,
Yeah.
because they just don't know what you do. And if people don't know what you do, and I'm not even talking about the market, I'm talking about the people within your company. If you guys can't tell what exactly your product and your service is, then you have a problem. And here's the funny thing. A lot of people think everyone knows what their product and service are. But the truth is, apart from just about knowing what your USP is, when you start a company or when you start, selling a service or creating a new product, the designers and developers, the marketers, the financiers, all of them have different views. And this stage is where you build consensus to try to define it in as simple ways as possible, and then think about all the other things that come to it as bells and whistles, because this core element that needs to be defined, and from there you start your brand journey.
And can I ask you a question? Because would I be right in presuming that the equivalent of these kinds of definitions for consultancies, that also can be just defining the problem we help solve? I will make an example. Like, we do digital transformation services. It's not wrong you're doing that, but it's very generic. It's like as if to me that's the equivalent of being a car salesperson and saying, oh, we sell transportation solutions, whereas in reality all you have is like Ford trucks. Then just say I'm selling Ford trucks. Like, be more specific if you can. I get that it's more difficult with services, but is that what you're saying, is maybe defining that
Yes,
more narrowly a bit better so that's much clearer?
That's really nice that you, like, initially I was just going to tell you, let's be more specific, not just problem, but it's a problem to solve, but you said it. Yeah. So the thing here is, yes, if you use your car example itself, right, it's not just about selling transportation vehicles. Like, if you just tell someone, hey, I sell cars, how many people just care if you sell cars? They'd like to know, do you sell a sports car? Do you sell like regular, family cars? Do you sell something like for specialists? What are the features? Like, people need to know what kind of car you're selling before they go. Just because if someone today just said, I have a car showroom, the expectation when you go there is they have multiple brands there. They have different kinds of cars. If you tell that you're a car showroom and they just see just Audi, for instance, or just Mercedes, or just BMW, or just Dodge or something, it'll be like, well, it's this specific thing. This is not what I wanted. And that kind of misleads the user.
and I don't want to drain my digital transformation example, but in what I've done in the past in these situations where this stuff comes up, and say, yeah, we sell this type of transformation. I used to push the business guys in the messaging workshop, say, no, you don't. Your clients are doing the digital transformation. What you're doing is you're helping with it, you're enabling it, blah, blah. And how exactly do you do that? And then it becomes arm wrestling from there. And sometimes I don't succeed and we have to slap the damn digital transformation on the website, right? Because I lost. But sometimes you do find that actually what we're doing is we help you keep the costs in check of these projects because we select the right tools and we have a quick way to implementing them. So if you can get more specific, it gets the point. But but back to your pyramid. I think that's my translation when I saw your framework. I was like, that's the stage where I have to think about that stuff, which I think is insanely helpful because it gets skipped so often, and then the messaging becomes too generic to do anything.
Yeah, like how many times have you seen like going to any consultancy and they all say they do digital transformation, but what? It's like that Ryan Reynolds, GIF saying, but why? The same reason. Why? Like you're doing digital transformation for what purpose? What problem of the client are you trying to solve?
Yeah,
that's the first thing. Next level is where you talk about the functional benefits. So this is where you literally start talking about the tangible benefits to the customer. Oh, I have a car. This car actually will help you save time. This car will get you from this place to that place. This car can actually take you faster than that car. It's all those kinds of things. Basically, what is the benefit? Plus things like, it's a 4-seater, it's a 2-seater. I don't want to talk about the car analogy too much, but generally your digital transformations benefits. Oh, I'm doing a finance transformation. We've got the expertise to help your finance transformation, or we can simplify Netflix financial organization to do this. So that's one thing that you can talk about on a functional benefit. And that's something that most people tend to have some idea of, but often because they don't get the features and attributes right, they jump straight into the functional benefit without having the hook.
Yeah, what I like in that level, and I don't know if that's actually technically probably a feature, but going back to this idea, let's say you are accelerating someone's digital transformation, or you're driving out costs, right? You could, on this level, as I'm thinking along in your pyramid, people could talk about they could discuss benefits which are not clear on the first glance or they're hidden. Like, for example, you could say, look, I told you one of the features we bring is we have so many partnerships with these tech vendors to find that we have all the APIs ready. Well, the functional benefit to you is just setting that up and making sure that stuff sits right. Usually it's like 10 or 15% of total project costs. And with us, we have done all that stuff. We come in and we can start right away. I'm making this up, but you could drive, to your point, you can drive these next level up messaging points if you did a good job defining the base. I really like the pyramid. Yeah.
We can literally think about it like a sentence thing. Generally, the pyramid's a lot more complex than that. But let's say the features and attributes. We are accelerating your company's transformation.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be, say, the first part of the sentence. The functional benefits to save you time, save your cost, save something. That could be your functional benefit. And the next level is the emotional benefit. Like, what does this product or service make the consumer feel? And that emotional benefit is like, once you say to save you time or save you cost, so that you can do blah, so that you can do your company's goals, so that you can make the world greener, so that you can make, you can hire diverse people, so that you can do whatever. Like, essentially, the emotional benefit, you can think about it like different parts of a sentence, but the emotional benefit is really key.
Yeah.
What often happens is, if you're really honest, is companies either completely gloss over it, or companies talk about the emotional benefit of themselves. Like, we are amazing because we are so...
We're proud to announce that we're the greatest shit ever in Gartner's latest ranking.
Yes. Yeah. It's not about... Yeah, go on.
And, sorry, I just want to... I really like that, and that's also why I like the pyramid framework, because 100% agree that often gets forgotten. Actually, I think often deliberately so. Like consultants or experts of any level will look at this and they will say, "Nah, I want to keep things professional," right? As if by which they mean they want to be robotic, as if people were not buying from people, and they don't speak to the emotions. And when I say you can address the emotions, no one has to tear up and stuff. Just use some of the words. Like if you streamline my digital transformation, maybe it becomes less confusing, or it's quicker and now it's less frustrating, or maybe you make sure that I can drive that project confidently. Like I'm literally talking about very often in this session about these minor tweaks. To say let's just use some emotional words. Just have to be one or two, but speak to how the people are feeling. And by the way, you have to have the insight to do that well. If your clients are not frustrated, you shouldn't be using the word phrase around that. So I find it's funny how it sits in the middle of the pyramid. That's a pivotal thing. Like you can drive so many incremental improvements in how your messaging resonates by just speaking to how people feel.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional benefits should be for the customer. That needs to be emphasized like anything. Like you have to talk about what the customer should feel. We will make you feel, more efficient. We'll make you feel better. We'll make you feel accomplished. We'll make you feel something. Or not even we. By doing this will make you feel something is good enough. But make sure it's not about you and how you are awesome.
In fact, just speak to the emotional state that people are in, because it's just a fact of psychology that people, they do buy solutions for external problems, but they make the decision based on the internal problems they face, and that often goes to the emotional state. I really like that. It's a good one to tackle. But now we get into the persona, if I'm not mistaken.
The
Elaborate now.
Product persona thing, that's sometimes tricky, but also not. It's essentially humanizing your product, your service, your offering. Everything can be humanized. Let's just look at like social media. Wendy's as a brand literally talks like it's a sassy 15-year-old girl, and you're like, okay, this is just weird. But people communicate with it like that. The same way, I'm not saying that a professional services brand needs to put up a 15-year-old sassy girl. I'm just saying your service or offering needs to be humanized. When you get your benefits right, you will easily find how this becomes humanized. The humanizing doesn't just mean let's just make this entire thing into a person. It also means that the people who are going out to sell, the people who are going to talk, all of those people, humanize your brand, humanize your offering by kind of talking about the service in a way that the language kind of makes people understand we're human. Not by saying we're human, but by showing we're human. Like literally, the key thing here is show, don't tell. You kind of have to show how your brand is. And if you want to be a bit more specific about it, like I think we could even talk about like how can your brand relate to your audience? I mean, if you were to describe your brand as a person, right?
Yeah.
What values are important to this person, to your company? And like every aspect of your company, like from like in a professional services thing, from like say development of the offering to like client relations to marketing, they all should reinforce these core values. If they kind of don't, then you don't really have that. It's fine.
And I 2 points on that. Here's where it also gets into the design, right? What are the language guidelines? How does those stuff look and feel like? And I don't want to call out single firms too much on the podcast, but I think what is interesting is a while ago, McKinsey and Company rebranded. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes because they were quite public about how they did it. So you can really people can go and find the website about their rebranding. And they elaborate quite a bit on, okay, this is why we chose this style of imagery and here's how the language works and all that. And you be the judge of whether that's good or not. It's just interesting to see how they are explicit about that, because I think that can be an interesting case study in how to do that part of the pyramid you just described. So anyways, I don't want to stop you because you have one more element of the pyramid to go through.
Yeah, the last level, the highest level actually, is your brand idea
Yeah.
and the essence of your brand. The gist of it is, why should anyone give a crap about your brand? Why should people care? Why should people care about your brand? Like most of the time, people just say, you should care about our brand because we are amazing and we are awesome. And what are you trying to do? Like, really? Why are you awesome? Nothing like that. It's like this is why everything builds up. You talk about your features and attributes, you talk about your benefits, functional and emotional, you build up a relatable persona, and then you get people to care. But if you tell people to care because you are awesome, let me ask a simple question. How many people are fond of narcissists? I mean, really? If you're not really fond of narcissists, we're not really fond of people who just talk about themselves. We are fond of people who connect with someone. This brand idea has to be hard coded into your expression of your brand. It is what ultimately sets you apart. Because if you've got all these building up, then it's like, yes, we now have it. And that's where you start getting people becoming your ambassadors, your fans. They see your brand as a hero. This is the story that your brand now tells the world. And this is not something, unfortunately, that a lot of professional services companies do. Because the only people who start hero worshipping them are the people who work there or people who work in rival companies. The rest of the world could not give a damn because they're just like, oh, they do all of this amazing. And you hear people like talking negatively about the people who work in such companies too sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to go into negative, but surprisingly often, just the plain reality is that it's very, very much more commoditized than the people in the firms themselves like to believe. Like, if I need a tax advisory, or if I need an audit, or if I need IT systems integration, I'm just going to go buy that. And sure, some firm is going to end up with the contract, but at the outset, it's not like, oh, there's one clear category lead, I'm going to go with them. Well, then the categories are somewhat stacked, right? There's obviously a top master sort of level class for strategy consulting, and there's layers underneath that. Same might be true for, but in each of these layers, within each of these layers, very much feature parity and commoditized. Anyways, that's why the brand idea, I think, in the future, to your point, I think that will become more important. And you could try and become the practice that reinvents the what was our example? Digital transformation was probably risky, but you could say, well, you can do that in a straightforward manner, or you can do it with just out of the box tools. So we believe that, like, whatever the point of view of the brand idea is, but you could commit to something, really stick your neck out, and yes, risk that people will say, I don't believe that, I'm not buying that. But the flip side of that is that you might find other people say, oh, that is exactly what I'm looking for, and that is what gives you the edge. So, and I think that's going to be more important in the very near future, because
it's going to be super important. And here's the thing, because people don't have this in a healthy way, while competition certainly exists, we live in a reality where companies know they can lose a client pretty easily. There is no guarantee that just because you have a client today that you continue to have the client. The only reason often why some of these clients still remain is because there are people that they're connected to and there are people they like working with. That's not your brand. These people will not be there forever. And what will you do next? It's like, do you want to follow the model that once these people are out, you got to start from scratch? The next generation, the next set of people could easily get connected with someone else. And if these people decide to move to the other firm, so does most of their business after their, period of like exclusion finishes. It's just a reality of things. People just need to realize that if your brand is strong, even if your friends change companies, they'll stick with the brand. But professional services companies don't think that far ahead because they don't see the need for humanizing their brand, because, like you said, professionalism. I mean, not professionalism. Professionalism is needed, but professional communication is just boring. It's just dry. It's without emotion and without connection. And therefore, all that connection that you have completely relies on your employee. And in today's world, if people don't watch out, given that the millennial generation and the generation below are so used to switching jobs at such immediate crazy frequencies,
Yeah.
you're not able to hold on to those brands. That's something that large companies need to realize, and smaller companies need to take advantage of by building their brand in this kind of way.
Yeah. And I think you can win quite a bit of ground by just having a different. Even if you just did the tonality thing and sort of went out a bit of the ordinary, you would at least stand out in the noisy place that is professional services marketing, right?
So something I would be curious about is if any of our listeners can say if they've actually used a framework similar to this. A lot of companies might have done like a brand audit, but based upon the audit, have they built a framework? And once they've built the framework, how long have they followed it? And have, like, obviously things need to pivot from time to time. That's normal and that's acceptable. But how successful have they been? From what I've seen, this framework, while a really useful tool and something that's mostly just taught to people who go to places like Insight and stuff, is largely missing in a practice because people who jump into careers like marketing tend to have come from all places and build a career, and that's an amazing thing. But sometimes it's good to have a little bit of like theory to just ground yourself.
Just having a framework at hand to so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, it could be as pragmatic as that, and which I think is why we are doing this one here. And I think we could maybe find the time of future episodes to do some more of these and just revisit the toolbox.
Not only that, if you're interested, let us know. If you would like us to do a session where we can explain how to set up a framework like this. Not only that, like, what do you need before you start a framework like this? We're happy to do that.
Yeah.
Let us know.
So that's our promise. We'll do more of that practical stuff going forward. And yeah, I think that's it for today, right? We can probably wrap it here. Thanks, Ash. That was helpful. I really like the pyramid. Good.
That's why I keep talking about it along with stakeholders. But that's a wrap from us today.
Yeah, nice.
Thanks for listening to Unbillable Hours. If you want more, tune in next week. You know where to find us.